Hi, in the last video, we've just had an overview of the paint tools, how to create them, and quick look at the UI. In this part, we will work on geometry painting. First, select the Geometry Texture Painter in the hierarchy. There are a few paint modes that will modify your terrain geometry, or in other words, the height map texture, including elevation, height sampling, terrace, remap, noise, subdivision, and visibility. To keep things simple, in this tutorial we will only walk through the most used modes, which are elevation, height sampling, subdivision, and visibility. One small thing to note here. My terrain is using gradient lookup material, as you can see in the inspector here. This shading mode gives me automatic color adaptation based on slope and height while I'm painting. To use it, you can click on the context menu here, then select Set Shader, scroll down, click on Gradient Lookup, then hit Apply. Before we begin, let's match our geometry settings to what's showing on the screen now. When you create a new terrain, its initial height level will be at 0, which is the lowest possible. You cannot lower it more than that. So it's better to raise the whole terrain up a bit, so we will have space to lower it later. To do that, I'll use the height sampling mode. There is no suitable point to sample from just yet. I'll type my height value directly into the inspector at the sample point Y value. Then pick a strong brush, let opacity and target strength at maximum, and paint over the terrain. I'll revert other settings to default so my brush stops jumping around. Play around with different sample points until you're happy with it. Now I'll switch to elevation mode. In this mode, you can raise the surface with the left mouse button, hold Control to lower it, and hold Shift to smooth it. The effect of geometry painting is somewhat strong, so it's better to keep opacity and target strength a bit low. Now I'll sketch the basic layout of my level. Now we have the basic layout of the level. Let me spend a few seconds to adjust my terrain gradient. Let's say that I want to flatten some area on the terrain where gameplay happens, or to place buildings or other structures that need the surrounding to be flat. How do I do that? With the Geometry Texture Painter selected, I'll again use the height sampling mode. In the scene view, hold Shift and left click to sample height level at that point. Then release the Shift key and start painting. Do similar actions to other places. To connect those flattened floors, I'll mix between height sampling and elevation smooth to make a ramp. Very nice. Polaris implements a dynamic polygon density for terrain mesh. You can see that triangle size may vary between different locations. This happens automatically. However, sometimes you may want to keep a high polygon density for better detail at important locations. To do that, just use the subdivision mode and paint over it. Now let's take a look at the last paint mode in this tutorial. Visibility. It helps you remove some polygon on the surface. In other words, cut a hole for cave entrance and such. Select the visibility mode. I'll use a small brush with high intensity to paint. Hold Control and left mouse to cut the hole. To add the triangles back, release the Control key and paint. Note that Polaris only cuts holes on your terrain for cave entrance. For a cave body, you need to use a pre-modeled prefab with some decorative object at the entrance to hide the seams. And that's it. Now we have the geometry of our terrain. In the next part, we'll do color and texture painting. See you next time.